Thank you. Good evening. Well, that's loud. Good evening, everybody. It's now 6 o'clock, so we'll get started. I declare that the agenda briefing of the 3rd of December 2024 is now open at 6 p.m. We acknowledge the Whadjuk people, the traditional custodians of the land, and we also pay our respects to elders both past, present and emerging. In accordance with the City of Canning Policy CM 105, agenda briefings are conducted to provide elected meetings with a forum to ask questions of the City's administration to enable informed decision-making by Council at the following Ordinary Council meeting. Following week's Ordinary Council meeting. Agenda briefings are not decision-making forums. Questions may be asked and answered, but no debate or discussion is permitted. Questions must specifically relate to an item on tonight's agenda. Elected members and employees must disclose any financial, proximity or partial briefing or at the very latest when the item is about to be discussed. Financial, proximity and impartiality interests are to be disclosed in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government Act 1995 as they apply to council meetings. Elected members disclosing a financial or proximity interest must not participate in the part of a briefing relating to their interest and must leave the meeting for the duration of that item. Agenda briefings are open to the public. This briefing is being live streamed to the public via the City's YouTube channel. And lastly, if we could all please ensure that all mobile phones are turned off and maybe even laptops, just because we can hear emails and reminders coming through, please put them on silent for the duration of this briefing. Today is no different to any other agenda briefing, and Councillor Tuchek has championed another great initiative. At each agenda briefing, council and staff support a charity, and today it's very obvious that we are all wearing Christmas gear, some more than others. Councillor Tuchek, can I call upon you to explain tonight's theme and charity?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, it is the Christmas or the festive season theme tonight, with donations going to Make-A-Wish Foundation, the very important foundation for kids with cancer. And the gifts tonight are also going to the RSL Cavalcade, which operates this Saturday. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Tuchek, and we look forward to receiving next year's list of charities before this year is over, maybe? We'll see. At item 2, we have attendance. At item 2.1, we've got the apologies from Mayor Hall, Councillor Secon, Councillor Singh and Councillor Hearn are all apologies for this evening. At item 2.2, approve leave of absence, there are none. At item 3, disclosures of interest. Mr CEO, do we have any disclosures this evening?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, in relation to item 3.1, declarations of interest of a financial nature, I have received none. In relation to item 3.2, declarations of impartiality, I have received one from yourself, Deputy Mayor Amanda Spencer-Teo. It is in relation to item IE 021 of 24. It is the tender for Corinthian Park Tennis Club. The nature of your interest is you are a member of the club. That's it.
That I am. Thank you, Mr CEO. We will now move on to item 4, which is question time for the public. I don't believe we have any questions from the public, so I won't open or close question public time. We will move to item 4.1, response to previous questions taken on notice. Responses to previous questions taken on notice will be noted at the ordinary council meeting agenda. At item 4.2, we're question time from the public, which I'm not going to open, so I'll just skip that bit. At item 4.3, we've got deputations. A deputation has been approved for Ben Carter from Pinnacle Planning regarding item PD 01024, which is the review of local planning policies, 2024 outcome of advertising. Mr. Carter, would you like to come up to the microphone? You have 10 minutes to make your deputation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member, for indulging the deputation. And I obviously missed the memo for the fancy dress, so unfortunate for that one. Look, this is a 4-page deputation, so I will do a summary because that was obviously circulated today. We act on behalf of the Outdoor Media Association, which is a national body representing essentially outdoor media companies and advertisers. Their prime interest in the policy review is the advertising signs policy that is up for review as part of your overall suite of new planning policies, which is an exciting time to be at the city. The Outdoor Media Association, again, is a national body. They have a $1.2 billion industry and they're a significant contributor to the local economy. There's currently 58 members operating in Western Australia, which is great to see. One of the things that they're quite interested in as an advocacy and industry piece is working with councils when they have new planning policies coming out and making sure that they're workable and effective for industry whilst being a regulatory tool in and of itself. As part of that process, we did actually submit a submission on the policy, which is great to see that there have been some changes made to the policy as a result of the submission, namely changing some of the sizes of the signage allowed, the types of signs allowed, and looking at reducing some of the prohibitions on speed zones and deferring those to main road safety, which are all positive steps. There were 3 particular areas that were identified as still needing further work to be done. 3 of those were the period of approval, the location of signage, and the format. In terms of the period of approval, the current policy speaks to a 5 to 10 year validity period. Digital signage is very expensive to basically get approved and actually build. They cost $500,000 to $1 million to actually put a digital screen in, the ones of enough size and substance. They have supporting structures, they have a lot of footings and those sorts of things. So they are an expensive item to put in. So when people are taking that level of construction risk, they do need to have some period of approval to rely on that. So that is one thing that is an issue for the Outdoor Media Association still. In terms of the location, as it stands at the moment, industrial areas are really the only location that these signs can be pursued. What we're seeing is that there have been some better examples of integration of signage in some buildings, namely in West Leederville, Claremont, Mosman Park, and certainly Yagan Square in a town centre setting, which effectively acts as a wayfinding, a meeting place, and visual interest. So when done well in certain locations, architecturally integrated and really sized and proportioned appropriately, they actually can be a contributor to urban amenity rather than a detractor. So certainly the location only allowing them in industrial areas, we don't believe, nor does our client, meet that aim or achieve that. And certainly the format was another final issue where we're talking about prohibitions around roof and wall signs, particularly wall signs, integrating signage into proportionally done well, the wall of a building, whether that be a new building, additions to an existing building, and facade improvements thereafter, are all best practice examples of integration for modern digital signage. And again, in town centre areas right through Western Australia, there are some great examples of those. So our client is requesting that the policy be further deferred to allow work on those 3 points and to effectively flesh that policy out further to make it more workable for industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We will now move on to item 5, items brought forward for the convenience of those in the public gallery. I don't think we need to do anything there. Item 6, reports of committee meetings. There are none. Item 7, reports. Item 7.1, CEO Willetton, Chief Executive Officer. You don't have any tonight. There are none. We will move on to the first item, being the monthly financial report for October, which is under Director Driscoll, Director of Corporate and Commercial. The officer's recommendation is on the screen. Councillors, do we have any questions on this item? Councillor Bain?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The Kent Street Weir. I note that the concept map has been taken down from the city's website. Would it please be possible to upload the latest concept map and also update the project timeline on the website, please?
Director Bowe?
We can do that, Councillor Bain. Obviously, we sent a memo through to the elected members with an updated concept. We are in the progress of developing the detailed design. We'll give it some consideration, but certainly the timeframes. I'm just mindful of not putting up a concept plan, and then pretty soon after we'll have the detailed design. But we can certainly update the timeframes.
Would it also, just given your explanation there, be able to provide elected members with a revised landscape concept plan? I note that, as you mentioned, there was a plan that was forwarded to elected members the other day, but that's rather showing themes, etc. I want to see a actual WEAR precinct plan that's been updated since the last one, which I believe is a few years ago now.
Director Bowe?
There's been no real work done to update the broader precinct landscaping plan, Councillor Bain. Certainly, we've taken a staged approach to delivering the precinct outcomes, and so there's no real updated landscape plan. We've certainly chunked out elements of the precinct plan, such as the canoe club storage building and the playground, the dog park, and also the wetland buffer. But I'll revisit it with our manager of parks and environment and to see. But from memory, we haven't done a lot of work in that space.
I appreciate it. Thank you. It's I've received an inquiry, particularly from a local resident, regarding the car parking, and I believe there has been some minor changes made to particularly the parking that was proposed for Ken Street.
Well, certainly the delivery of car parking facilities down at Ken Street Weir remains a challenge. There has been a couple of iterations of the broader landscape plan that identified formalising car parking along Ken Street there, but the most recent iteration from probably a couple of years ago aimed to not formalise that to the degree that was originally planned.
Will the district level playground, given the information that you passed on the other day, will the district level playground include the equipment and the play experiences that were put forward by the residents when we had the community engagement event?
Director Bowe?
I'm not familiar with the content of what the feedback was. I don't recall it, Councillor Bain. I'll take that on notice and provide a response.
While we're on Kent Street, I've just got a question regarding the Aboriginal consultation. I recall that we were waiting on that even as long ago as last year, and we had expensed something around about $50,000. Has that expense increased, or are we still waiting for that same approval that we were several months ago?
The city undertook an engagement exercise in relation and in preparation for the proposed changes to the legislation regarding Aboriginal cultural heritage. In preparation for that legislation change, which involved a degree of consultation and the establishment of a reference group, there has been through Emerge Associates and another third-party organisation, the Jalgara Weir group established, which we've reported through to Council a couple of times now on the memo, but I'm happy to do some review and provide you with an update on any of the expenditure in that space, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Director Bowe. That would be appreciated. And do we have any rough timelines of when we expect the approval to come through so that we can get this project off the ground?
We aren't actually awaiting the approval. Our approach, whilst it was aimed at satisfying the proposed legislative requirements, our approach has already satisfied the current legislative requirements. So we're not actually awaiting any Section 18 approval on the development at the moment. We're certainly just progressing through from concept through to detailed design, which aims to broaden the scope of the playground to try and ensure that we're attracting as much external funding for that investment as we can.
Great, thank you, Director Bowe. Does anyone else have any questions on the monthly financials? No, we shall move on then to item CC 02824, the lease renewal of the Willetton Playgroup Association, incorporated at number 2 to 8 Kingfisher Loop in Willetton. The officer's recommendation is on page 50 and on the screen now. Councillors, do we have any questions on this item? No, we shall move on to item CC 02924, which is the lease renewal for the Willetton Scouts and Guides. The recommendation is on page 58 of the agenda and is on screen now. Councillors, do we have any questions on this item? No, we shall move on to CC 03024, which is the lease renewal for the Scouts in Ferndale. The officer's recommendation is on page 66 of the agenda and is on screen now. Councillors, do we have any questions on this item? Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Was the proposed upgrade of the Ferndale Scout Hall and the potential co-location of other scout groups part of the lease negotiations with both Scouts WA and the Riverton Scouts?
Director Driscoll.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, the upgrade of the building is obviously known by the scouting organisation, and the negotiations with Ferndale Scouts have been in particular relation to this particular lease.
Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Has there been any recent meetings between the City and Riverton Scouts to discuss the proposed upgrades?
Director Driscoll.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I'm not aware of any of those conversations, but I can take that one on notice and bring that information back to you next week.
So, Councillor Bain, is this to do with the upgrades of the facilities at the reserve or with the lease with Scouts?
No, no. So the Scout Hall's proposed to be upgraded in 27-28.
Is that
Scout
correct?
Hall.
I thought that, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any more questions, anybody? No, we shall move on to item CC 031 of 24, the submission received about the proposed land disposal to Indara Corporation Proprietary Limited at 40 Centenary Avenue in Wilson. The officer's recommendation is on page 73 of the agenda and it is also on screen now. Councillors, do we have any questions for this item? Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Has the City made Indara aware of the objections their proposed development has received?
Director Driscoll.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, no, we haven't had any contact with Indara since we received this submission.
Which submission are you referring to, Director?
Sorry, I'm referring to the submission we received in response to this report. Sorry, I'm trying to find the reference number for you. So this report is in relation to a submission received, and I believe that's what you were asking the question. In regard to it, we haven't spoken to Indara directly about the detail of this one.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm assuming they're aware of the 41 previous objections then? Is that correct?
Yeah, through you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, they would have been aware of that through the original process.
Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Does the City know if Indara has responded in any way to these objections? Have the objections elicited any response from them?
Director Driscoll, or did you want Director Bride to answer that one? Director Bride?
Yeah, through you, Deputy Mayor. Are we talking about the submissions that were lodged back in 2023?
So yeah, that'll make it 42 objections overall.
Yeah, so as Director Driscoll mentioned, they were all the comments that were made during that time were available, and Indara knew about them. It was up to the City to consider those submissions and make its decision. It's Indara, whether Indara wanted to change its plans or anything like that is up to Indara, but certainly the City's responsibility was to consider those submissions.
Councillor Bain, did you have any follow-up questions? No problem. Anyone else have any questions on this item? We shall move on to item CC032 of 24, a submission received on the local public notice on proposal of disposal of 96 Barbican Street in Shelley. The recommendation is on page 2 of the late agenda and is on screen now. Councillors, do we have any questions on this item? No, we shall move on to item 7.3, which is Director Bride, the Director of Planning and Development. Item PD 01024, which is the review of local planning policies 2024, outcomes of advertising. The recommendation is on page 106 of the agenda, councillors, and is also on screen now. Do we have any questions on this item? Councillor Kunza?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just first of all, with respect to Mr Carter's deputation, he referenced a submission that was circulated. I didn't receive any submission. Has the city received one?
Mr CEO, that sounded like a yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we certainly received a submission, Councillor Kunza, and it was distributed this afternoon. No, it wasn't distributed this afternoon. So, yeah, apologies. That will be distributed as soon as possible so that you're able to consider that the detail of the deputation.
Thank you, CEO. I thought it was just me because I was having email problems, but it looks like it's everybody. So we will get that hopefully this evening, or it looks like Mr. Littleton's doing it as we speak. Any more questions, Councillor Kunza?
Yeah, thanks for that, CEO. And through you, Deputy Mayor. I've got some similar questions with respect to what was proposed, or what was raised during the deputation. So the city, I raised this during the strategic information briefing on this. The city's proposed to limit third-party advertising to general industry and light industry. Why is this?
Director Bride?
Yeah, through you, Deputy Mayor. At the moment, the city's policy doesn't actually identify any zones where third-party signage could be considered. We believe that the light industrial and the general industrial zones are the amenity of those areas are less or not as concerning to the city compared to some of the commercial areas, especially our Canning city centre, and including the Albany Highway bulky goods district. So we thought, rather than have a blanket prohibition on third-party signage, we thought general and light industrial zones, which we do have a fair bit of land. We've got Canning Vale Industrial Precinct and Welshpool, and we've got a number of roads, quite significant roads carrying high volumes of traffic, which would be reasonable or prime locations for this sort of signage. And we didn't think, given the location, you'd have an impact with residential precincts, or you get a proliferation in a commercial district, which you are trying to enhance and improve. There's certainly, with those signs along Albany Highway, historically there's a number of roof signs that are third-party signs. And we've heard from those landowners that the rent they get from those signs can be quite significant, and they could actually be a potential impediment to future redevelopment of some of those sites. So that's the primary reason.
Councillor Kunza?
So when you say, early in your response, you said concern, is that where that the concern comes from, primarily just with the lack of incentive for development on those lots?
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor. The main concern is the amenity impact and the proliferation of signage. Obviously, third-party signs are additional to the signage that businesses would normally have on their property. So this is an additional right above and beyond that signage, especially if it relates to private land. So in a commercial setting, and especially where you're trying to regenerate or improve the amenity of some of these commercial precincts within the city, having a proliferation of third-party signs we don't think is is a good match for those zones. So we're sort of focused on those industrial zones where there's large vehicle corridors that could accommodate. So it gives the industry some options which they've never had before, but we just don't think in some of our commercial precincts it's appropriate.
Councillor Kunza?
So if residential amenity is the concern, why does the City of Canning have a big LED sign on High Road on civic and community land pointing at houses on High Road that's not industrial? Is the city exempt from these policies?
Director Bright?
Through Deputy Mayor, those particular signs were approved, as I understand it, and we're happy to follow up post this meeting, as community signs. So they don't actually advertise, as far as I understand, third-party content. It's services and events that the city itself undertakes. So it's a different signage category.
So last week it was advertising Camco Engineering. The business case for this was to have third-party commercial advertising. As I raised in the SIB and as I've raised throughout my whole time on council, I feel like the City of Canning should be held to the standards that it holds its community on, and I've always found these examples where we don't. In the previous ones, I talked about land banking in the previous item, and we're the biggest land banker in the area. I feel like this policy should reflect what we do on council, and those signs also aim at public open space as well, which is a part of this policy, is not to allow signage facing public open space.
Is there a question there, Councillor Kunza?
Yeah, so is the city going to look at its own signage and make sure it complies with these policies?
Director Bright?
Yes, through Deputy Mayor. Again, we can have a look at that particular approval in relation to those community signs. But certainly there is another policy that council has which relates to signage on reserves and public open space. That's in Director Fisher's directorate that provides opportunities for some commercial signage, as far as I understand, but we can certainly circulate that policy to council.
Councillor Kunza, sorry, you look like you had another question.
No, I'll deal with it next week. Thank you.
No problem. Councillor Page?
So just to check, this may go through you to Mr. Bride. Would it be more the city's preference then, rather than wall signs and third-party advertising, to lift the amenity in the town centre to be more of a focus on public art and murals and such, rather than advertising?
Director Bride?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, yeah, certainly, obviously, they're two different perspectives, but certainly public art is something that we are looking at as a city to improve and provide those opportunities. Certainly, that's what we're looking forward to.
Councillors, any other questions on this item before we move on? No, I actually do have a whole bunch of questions, but I am going to email them through either this evening or tomorrow on that advertising policy as well. We will move on to item 7.4, which is Director Bowe, the Director of Infrastructure and Environment. We've got item IE020 of 24, the request for quote FM.037.216, Cannington and Riverton Leisureplexes building renewal works. The recommendation is on page 117 of the agenda and is on screen now. Councillors, do we have any questions on this item? Councillor Kunza.
It's not directly related to the tender, but it is related to the issue. Over the years, it's been patently clear through community feedback that our wellness pool isn't big enough, and once we redo the roof at Riverton Leisureplexes, that is, there won't be any work. So I was just wondering, further work. So I was just wondering if the city staff have considered at all how feasible it would be to actually expand that wellness area, given the amount of work that's being proposed in dealing with structural issues, given that once you do that work, you'll never be looking again at expanding it or any further works. And as Director Bowe knows, in the past, we've spoken to the community about increasing the capacity of the wellness pool at Riverton Leisureplexes. And it's not till I read this report that I realised that once this happens, we probably won't get another opportunity. So I just wanted to know if staff have considered it at all.
Director Bowe.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. The short answer is no, Councillor Kunza, but I am happy to revisit. I think a bit of work was done in that space a few years ago, so we can retrieve that and look at what the estimates were and provide some feedback to the elected members in relation to that. I guess from an asset management perspective, we'd be including our asset renewal demand in and in context of, I guess, the significant amount of investment that's required just to meet our renewal demand of today, and in the short term, it would be unlikely to be able to support that from a financial management perspective. But we can, as I said, I'll dig up that information and circulate what that costs were estimated at.
Thank you, Director Bowe. It was a few years ago. If we quadruple it, we might get a rough idea of what it might cost today. Councillors, any more questions on this item? Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. How much of the funds budgeted for this financial year to renew the Leisureplexes has been spent, and what major projects have been completed thus far? Thank you.
Director Bowe, do you have that information on hand, or would you like to take that on notice?
I'll take that on notice. Thank you, Madam Deputy.
Thank you, Director Bowe. We'll get back to you, Councillor Bain. Councillors, any more questions on this item? No, we shall move on to item IE 021 of 24, which is tender 33/2024 for the Corinthian Park Hall renewal. The recommendation is on page 125 of the agenda and is on screen now. Councillors, do we have any questions on this item? Councillor Kunza.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you.
Sorry, Councillor Kunza, go ahead.
All good. Just through you, with respect to mainly this one, but the other tenders as well, is it possible to actually get copies of the designs, what's actually in the scope and what's proposed? Like, this doesn't have any detail for council to actually read it in context regarding what's proposed at Corinthian Park as part of the report.
Mr Littleton says sure. So I think that means yes.
Thank you. And with respect to consultation, paragraphs 35 onwards, with the application and getting the successful application, it notes that you consult with the department and so forth. Do you engage the local members of parliament as well? Director Bowe, would you like to answer that one?
To the best of our knowledge, we don't directly engage with the local MPs. We deal with it at executive level through the department. Councillor Kunza.
So the member for Riverton's not engaged in this. It's just at an executive level admin, and you deal with the department. Director Bowe.
I believe that's our standard practice, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Mr Littleton.
Look, just to support what Director Bowe has said, in the development of this project and in our application to CSRFF, there is no political interface with the member for Riverton, but I would certainly say that there have been conversations with candidates for Riverton and members for Riverton around support for local clubs, Corinthian Park included. So not necessarily in relation to the detail of this project, but our advocacy strategy is far-reaching, and it does touch on community infrastructure such as Corinthian.
So the Corinthian Park tennis, this project wasn't part of the city's advocacy document, though, was it? As far as I can recall, the ancillary works were. Is that correct?
No. The Corinthian Park Tennis Club isn't part of the city's advocacy because it is funded by the city with a $600,000 grant from CSRFF. But I'm aware that Corinthian Tennis Club are looking for ancillary projects that I'm sure that they are actively advocating for.
Yes. Thank you, CEO. Mr Littleton. Councillor Kunza, did you have any more questions? No? Councillors, any questions on this item before we move on? No? We're getting through this very quick tonight. Another tender at item IE022 of 24, tender 05/2024 for plumbing services. The area officer's recommendation is on page 132 of the agenda and is also on screen now. Councillors, do we have any questions on this item? No. Plumbing's not very exciting. At item IE023 of 24, we've got a request for quote FM.037.472 for the Whaleback Golf Course driving range perimeter netting. We have had plenty of discussions on this. It is a late item. The recommendation is on page 10 of the late agenda items and is also on screen now. Councillors, surely there aren't any questions on this item. Oh, Councillor Bain, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. In what ways did Country Club International effectively address the panel's concerns regarding bird strikes while the other tenderer didn't? And is there currently or has there historically been an issue with bird strikes with the existing netting? Thank you.
Director Bowe, are the birds going to be okay?
I might, if I could answer the second part of Councillor Bain's question, the current fence I don't think had any issues with bird strike, Councillor Bain, but I will check with our manager of the golf course and just to get some greater detail about any implications or considerations of the tenderers in relation to this design for the new safety fitting.
And just to supplement, this fencing product is currently in situ at Fremantle Public Golf Course. I believe there is a couple of other golf course facilities that will have fencing as high as the proposed country club submission. So there is some history that has obviously gone to support the methodology proposed by Country Club.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Do we have any more questions on this item, councillors? No. We shall move on to item 7.5, which is Director Fisher, who is the Director of Customer and Community. You can have the night off. He's too busy dealing with storage containers out in the community, so that's okay. Item 8, notice of motions for consideration at the next ordinary council meeting. There are none. At item 9, urgent business, there is none. And at item 10, confidential matters, there also are none. So with that, I forgot to acknowledge in the beginning, but I would like to say a big thank you to Councillor Page. She handmade all of our lovely Christmas bow ties. And those who didn't get one, please feel free to get one, gentlemen, on your way out, perhaps.
Wear one on the OCM.
Yeah, you can wear one next week instead as the punishment. So we'll now move on to item 11, which is closure. There being no further business, I now declare the agenda briefing closed at 6:39 p.m. And thank everybody for their attendance. Thanks very much. Thanks, Sean. See you, Jen.